The briefing room at Bagram fell silent when the name came through. Not because anyone recognized it, but because no one did. Major Kira Voss. Call sign, Revenant. The SEAL team leader Hatcher glanced at his tablet, then at the Air Force liaison with open skepticism. They'd requested close air support for an extraction gone sideways in the Tangi Valley. What they got was a single A-10 Thunderbolt and a pilot nobody had heard of. The liaison shifted his weight, cleared his throat. Said she was available, said she was certified. Didn't say she was the only option left after two F-16s diverted for a troops-in-contact situation 30 miles north. Hatcher didn't ask. He just looked at the grainy personnel photo on the screen. Dark eyes, no smile, 38 years old. That was older than most strike pilots still flying combat sorties. The mission was simple on paper. 4 SEALs pinned in a dry riverbed. Taliban fighters in elevated positions on both ridges. Heavy machine gun fire, RPGs, no room for error. They needed precision. They needed someone who could drop ordnance within meters of friendly forces. Hatcher had seen pilots hesitate before, seen them abort runs when the margin got tight. This wasn't a training exercise. This was life or death. He asked the liaison how many combat hours she had. The man hesitated, then said enough. That hesitation told Hatcher everything. The sun was just lifting over the Hindu Kush when Revenant's A-10 lifted off the tarmac. The Warthog's twin turbofan engines growled, pushing the angular airframe into the thin morning air. The aircraft was scarred, panels mismatched from field repairs. Nose art faded from dust and years, but the 30mm GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon built into its nose was pristine. 3,500 rounds of depleted uranium. Kira checked her fuel, checked her weapons load. 2 Mavericks, 2 pods of Hydra rockets. Full gun. She didn't pray, didn't think about her daughter's voice on the phone last night asking when she'd be home. She just flew. The route took her low through the valleys. The terrain radar painted ridgelines in amber. She kept her altitude tight. The A-10 wasn't fast, wasn't stealthy, but it was built to survive. Titanium bathtub around the cockpit. Redundant systems. It could take hits and keep flying, just like her. The radio crackled. Hatcher's voice came through clipped and direct. Revenant, Viper 1 actual, we are taking effective fire from both ridges. Need immediate air support, coordinates follows. Kira copied the grid, pulled up the targeting display, saw the friendlies marked in blue, saw the estimated enemy positions in red. The gap between them was 70 meters, maybe less. She banked hard, rolled the Warthog into a descending turn. The valley opened beneath her, brown and jagged. She could see dust plumes from the firefight. Muzzle flashes on the eastern ridge. She keyed her mic. Viper 1, Revenant, I have visual on your position. Recommend you mark friendlies with smoke or IR strobe, commencing gun run on eastern ridge. There was a pause, then Hatcher's voice again, tension bleeding through. Revenant, be advised we are danger close. Repeat, danger close. Kira's jaw tightened. She'd heard that phrase 100 times. It meant the enemy was so close to friendly forces that any mistake would kill Americans. It meant trust. It meant precision. It meant everything. She rolled wings level, lined up the cannon reticle. Let the A-10's speed bleed off. The Warthog shuddered as she squeezed the trigger. The sound of the GAU-8 firing wasn't a sound. It was a force, a deep tearing roar that shook the airframe. 70 rounds per second, each round the size of a milk bottle. The tracer rounds arced down in a glowing stream, impacting the ridgeline in a violent line of explosions. Dirt and rock erupted, bodies tumbled. Kira pulled up hard, banked left, rolled into another pass without waiting. The A-10's instruments rattled. The stick felt heavy. She didn't care. She saw the western ridge. Saw muzzle flashes continuing, keyed her mic. Viper 1 shifting to western ridge, stay low. She didn't wait for confirmation, rolled inverted, let the nose drop, the world tilted. Sky became ground, she fired again. The cannon bellowed, the impacts walked along the ridge. Machine gun nests disintegrated, fighters scattered. One RPG team tried to track her. She saw the smoke trail arc up, pulled hard right. The missile passed 50 feet from her canopy. She felt the shockwave. The A-10 rocked. She kept flying, rolled back, lined up again, fired a third time. The western ridge went silent. Hatcher's voice came through. Different now. No skepticism, just relief. Revenant, Viper 1, that's effective, that's damn effective. Hostiles are broken, we are moving to extract point, request you stay on station. Kira circled. Her fuel was at 60%, she had time, she scanned the valley floor. Watched the four figures in desert fatigue sprinting through the riverbed toward the extraction zone. Watched the tree lines, the ridges, waited for threats. Nothing moved. The silence was almost worse than the chaos. She keyed her mic. Viper 1, Revenant, I have you visual, you're clear to extract, no movement on your flanks. 2 minutes later the Black Hawk appeared, low and fast, rotor wash kicking up dust as it flared and landed. The SEALs climbed aboard, the helo lifted, banked south. Kira stayed overhead until they crossed into secure airspace. Then she turned for home. Her hands were steady on the stick. Her breathing was even, but her eyes burned. She blinked once, twice. Let the adrenaline bleed away. Let the silence fill the cockpit. The A-10 rumbled beneath her. She checked her fuel again, enough to make it back, enough to land, enough to see her daughter's face tomorrow morning. That was all that mattered. When Kira landed at Bagram, the crew chiefs were waiting. They walked the aircraft, counted the damage. 3 bullet holes in the left stabilizer, 1 round through the vertical tail, none of it critical. The A-10 had done its job, so had she. She pulled off her helmet, her hair was matted with sweat. Her flight suit smelled like JP-8 and cordite. She didn't care. She signed the maintenance log, debriefed with the operations officer, gave her account in flat, technical language. Targets engaged. Rounds expended. Friendly secure. No embellishment, no drama. When she finished, the ops officer looked at her for a long moment, then nodded, said good work, said get some rest. She walked back to her quarters. The sun was high now. The heat was building. Other pilots passed her in the corridors. Some nodded, some didn't. She was used to it. She'd been flying combat for 15 years. A-10s for 12. She was older than most of the pilots in the squadron, older than the squadron commander. She'd taken a break when her daughter was born, came back when the marriage fell apart. The Air Force didn't care about her story. They cared about results. So did she. That night Hatcher found her in the chow hall. She was alone at a corner table, eating quietly. He approached with 2 of his team, stopped at her table, waited until she looked up. He didn't smile. SEALs didn't do small talk. He just said they wanted to thank her, said she'd saved their lives, said it was the best gun run he'd seen in 10 years. Kira looked at him, at the 2 operators behind him. Their faces were hard, professional, but their eyes were honest. She nodded once, said it was her job. Hatcher almost smiled, almost. He asked her call sign, she told him. Revenant, he asked what it meant. She took a sip of water, said it was a spirit that returns from the dead. Said she'd been shot down once, crashed in a field north of Kandahar, walked out with a broken leg and second-degree burns. Flew again 6 months later. Hatcher nodded slowly, said that explained it. Said most pilots wouldn't have made those passes. Too close, too dangerous, too much risk. Kira shrugged. Said close was the only way it worked. Said the A-10 was built for close, said she was too. Hatcher held her gaze, then extended his hand. She shook it, firm, brief. He turned and left. His team followed. Kira finished her meal alone. She didn't feel pride, didn't feel vindication. She just felt tired. It was always like this. The mission, the silence, the next day. But word traveled fast in a combat zone. By morning, every pilot in the squadron had heard. The SEALs didn't give praise lightly. When they said someone saved their lives, people listened. The younger pilots started looking at Kira differently, not with friendship, but with respect. The kind earned in fire, the kind that couldn't be faked. She didn't acknowledge it, didn't need to. She flew her missions, logged her hours, stayed professional, but something had shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. 2 days later, another tasking came through. A convoy ambushed en route Garfield. Multiple casualties. Air support requested immediately. The squadron commander looked at the roster, looked at Kira, asked if she was ready. She said yes. Grabbed her helmet, walked to the flight line. The crew chiefs had her A-10 prepped and armed. She did her walk around, checked the Mavericks, checked the gun, climbed into the cockpit, strapped in, started the engines. The Warthog growled to life. She taxied, took off. Turned north. The mission brief was thin. Enemy contact ongoing. Friendlies taking fire. No air assets on station. She pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 accelerated, not fast by fighter standards, but fast enough. She crossed into hostile airspace 12 minutes later. The convoy was scattered across 200 meters of open road. 3 Humvees burning, bodies on the ground. Insurgents firing from a tree line to the west. Kira rolled in without hesitation, lined up the cannon, fired. The GAU-8 tore through the tree line, wood splintered, fighters fell. She pulled up, rolled, came back, fired again. The insurgents broke, ran. She tracked them with her targeting pod, saw them trying to regroup near a compound 400 meters away. She selected a Maverick. Locked the target, fired. The missile streaked down, the compound exploded. Secondary detonations followed, ammunition cooking off. The radio erupted with voices. The convoy commander calling thanks, calling blessings, calling her an angel. Kira didn't respond. She circled, watched the convoy medics working, watched the casualties being loaded, watched until the extraction helos arrived. Then she turned for home. Her hands didn't shake, her voice didn't waver. She landed, debriefed, walked away. The squadron commander called her into his office that evening. She expected a reprimand, something about unauthorized weapon expenditure. Instead, he told her she was being put in for a medal. She said it wasn't necessary. He said it wasn't up to her. Said the SEALs had submitted a commendation. Said the convoy commander had done the same. Said the Air Force needed stories like hers. She didn't argue, just nodded, left, went back to her quarters, lay on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. Thought about her daughter's voice on the phone. Thought about the men she'd killed today. Thought about the men she'd saved. Wondered if the math ever balanced. The deployment wore on. Kira flew 62 combat sorties in 4 months. Every mission was close air support. Every mission was danger close. She never hesitated, never flinched. The A-10 became an extension of her will, scarred, battered, unstoppable. Other pilots started asking her for advice. How to manage gun runs in tight valleys, how to judge wind at low altitude, how to stay calm when the radios were screaming. She answered their questions, briefly, honestly, didn't lecture. Didn't preach, just shared what worked, what kept people alive. The younger pilots listened, started flying like her, aggressive, precise, unrelenting. The squadron's effectiveness ratings climbed. Casualty rates for supported ground units dropped. Command noticed, reporters noticed. A journalist embedded with the unit asked to interview her. She declined. He persisted. She declined again. He went to the squadron commander. The commander told her it was an order. She sat for the interview. Answered questions in short sentences, didn't embellish, didn't perform. The journalist asked about being a woman in combat aviation. She said it was irrelevant. Said the A-10 didn't care about gender. Said the enemy didn't either. Said the only thing that mattered was whether you could do the job. The journalist asked about her daughter. She said that was off limits. He pushed. She stood up, walked out. The interview never aired. But the story spread anyway. Social media, forums, veteran groups, the single mom flying an A-10 in Afghanistan, the pilot the SEALs requested by name, Revenant, the ghost who wouldn't die. Kira hated it, hated the attention, hated the mythology. She wasn't a hero, she was a pilot. She did her job, that was all, but the narrative had its own momentum. Letters arrived, emails, messages from families of soldiers she'd supported, thanking her. Telling her she'd saved their sons, their brothers, their husbands. She read each one, didn't reply, didn't know how. What do you say to someone whose child is alive because you killed someone else's? The moral calculus was impossible, so she didn't try, she just flew, mission after mission, day after day. The A-10's gun barrel wore down, they replaced it. The Mavericks ran out, they reloaded. The airframe accumulated damage. The crew chiefs patched it. The deployment clock ticked toward its end. Kira counted the days, not because she was eager to leave, but because her daughter was waiting. That was the only certainty that mattered. Final mission came on a cold morning in March. A special forces team trapped in the Korangal, surrounded, outnumbered, calling for air support. Every available asset was tasked elsewhere except one, Kira's A-10. She took off into a sky streaked with red. The mountains rose like teeth. The valleys were choked with shadow. She flew low, fast as the warthog would go. The radio chatter was frantic, the team leader's voice tight with controlled panic. They were down to their last magazines. casualties mounting. She told them to hold, told them she was 2 minutes out, pushed the throttles to the stops. The A-10 shuddered, protested, kept flying. She crested the ridgeline and saw it. A compound surrounded by enemy fighters. Muzzle flashes everywhere, smoke rising. The friendlies were barricaded in a single building. Roof collapsed. Walls pockmarked. She rolled in, fired the gun, the cannon roared. The enemy positions disintegrated. She pulled up, rolled, came back, fired again. The Warthog absorbed ground fire. Tracers streaking past. She ignored it, focused, fired again. The enemy broke, scattered. She selected her last Maverick, locked a technical truck mounted with a heavy machine gun, fired. The truck exploded. The blast wave rocked the compound. The radio went silent. Then the team leader's voice, shaking, grateful, alive. He said her name, said Revenant, said thank you. Kira circled overhead until the extraction helo arrived. Watched the team climb aboard, counted them, all 12. No one left behind. She waited until the helo was clear, then turned for home. Her fuel was at minimum. Her ammunition was spent. The A-10 was bleeding hydraulic fluid, but it flew. She flew. She landed with the fuel gauge reading 0. The engines flamed out as she taxied off the runway. The crew chiefs towed her A-10 to the ramp. They inspected the damage. 57 holes, 3 hydraulic lines severed, 1 engine mount cracked. It was a miracle the aircraft made it back. The crew chief looked at her, asked how she kept it flying. She said she didn't, said the A-10 did, said that's what it was built for. The crew chief shook his head, said he'd never seen anything like it. Said he'd been working Warthogs for 20 years. Said this was the most shot-up bird that ever came home. Kira looked at the aircraft, at the scarred titanium, the patch panels, the faded nose art. She reached out, touched the fuselage. It was still warm. She didn't say anything, just turned and walked away. Her deployment was over. She packed her gear, said goodbye to no one, boarded the transport back to the States, slept through most of the flight, dreamed of her daughter's smile, of quiet mornings, of a sky empty of smoke. She returned to a world that didn't understand. The Air Force held a ceremony, presented her with the Distinguished Flying Cross. The citation read like fiction: 62 combat missions, over 300 enemy combatants engaged, 0 friendly casualties from her ordnance. She stood at attention, accepted the medal, gave a short speech thanking her crew chiefs, her squadron, and the men and women on the ground. She didn't mention the sleepless nights, the nightmares, the weight of every life taken and saved. The ceremony ended. Photographers asked for pictures. She declined. Reporters asked for interviews. She declined. She drove to her daughter's school, waited outside in her truck, watched the kids pour out, saw her, 9 years old, bright eyes, running toward her. She stepped out, knelt down. Her daughter crashed into her arms, held tight, asked if she was staying this time. Kira closed her eyes, said yes, said she was done, said she'd never leave again. Her daughter pulled back, looked at her, said she was proud. Kira's throat tightened. She nodded, couldn't speak, just held her daughter, let the world fade away. Let the noise and the fire and the screaming radios dissolve. This was why she flew. This was why she survived. This was the only mission that mattered. Years passed. Kira retired from active duty, took a job as an instructor pilot at Davis-Monthan, taught the next generation, passed on the lessons written in blood and fuel. She didn't soften the truth, didn't romanticize the work, told them that close air support meant living with impossible choices, told them the A-10 would keep them alive if they respected it, told them that every life they saved was borrowed time, paid for with someone else's. The young pilots listened. Some washed out, some thrived. The best ones understood that flying the Warthog wasn't about glory. It was about precision, about trust, about being the last line between soldiers and death. Kira watched them graduate, watched them deploy. Some came back, some didn't. She mourned each one, attended every memorial, stood in the back, silent. When people asked about her time in combat, she spoke sparingly, said it was a long time ago, said she was just doing her job, but at night alone she still heard the radios. Still heard Hatcher's voice, still heard the GAU-8 roaring, still felt the A-10 shudder beneath her. The war never really ended, it just got quieter, more distant, but it was always there, in the edge of her vision, in the smell of jet fuel, in the shape of clouds at dawn. Her daughter grew up, Went to college, studied engineering, asked her mother once why she flew, why she went back after the crash, why she chose danger over safety. Kira thought for a long time. Finally said that some people are built to stand between chaos and order, said it wasn't courage, wasn't heroism, it was just what made sense to her. Said the A-10 was the same way, ugly, slow, unforgiving. But when everything went wrong, when the world was fire and screaming, it was the only thing that could survive. Her daughter nodded, said she understood, said she was glad her mother came home. Kira held her hand, said she was too. Years later, when Kira was in her 60s, the Air Force asked her to speak at an anniversary event. 50 years of the A-10 Thunderbolt. They wanted her to represent the legacy. She almost declined, but her daughter convinced her, said it mattered. Said the young pilots needed to hear it. So Kira went, stood on a stage in front of hundreds, looked out at the crowd, at the pilots, the crew chiefs, the soldiers who'd called for air support, the families. She spoke for 10 minutes, talked about what the Warthog represented, survival, precision, sacrifice, talked about the crew chiefs who kept it flying, the ground troops who trusted it, the pilots who flew it into hell and brought it home. She didn't talk about herself, didn't need to. When she finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another, then everyone standing ovation. Kira stood there, uncomfortable, grateful. She nodded once, walked off the stage. Outside, she found a quiet spot, looked up at the sky, clear and blue, peaceful. She thought about Hatcher, about the seals in the riverbed, about the convoy en route Garfield, about the Special Forces team in the Korangal, all of them alive, all of them home. Because of an ugly, scarred aircraft, and a pilot nobody believed in. The story of Revenant spread, became legend. Articles, documentaries, online forums dedicated to her missions. She ignored most of it, but sometimes late at night she'd read the messages. From soldiers who were there, who remembered, who wanted her to know it mattered. One message stayed with her, from Hatcher's son. Said his father talked about her until the day he died. Said she was the reason he got to grow up with a dad. Said thank you would never be enough, but it was all he had. Kira read it 3 times, typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, finally just wrote, "Your father was brave, I was just the pilot, take care of yourself," sent it, closed the laptop, sat in the dark, let herself cry for the first time in years, not from sadness, from release. From knowing that the weight she carried was shared, that the lives she saved went on, that the choices she made, impossible as they were, had meaning. The next morning she woke early, made coffee, watched the sunrise, thought about flying. About the A-10, about the roar of the cannon and the smell of cordite and the feeling of bringing a broken bird home. She didn't miss it, but she didn't regret it either. It was her life, her story, written in the sky over a distant war. And even now, decades later, when she heard the sound of jet engines overhead, she'd stop, look up, and remember. The Warthog she flew, tail number 800252, was retired to the boneyard at Davis-Monthan, stripped, mothballed, waiting. Kira visited it once, walked the rows of silent aircraft, found hers, stood beside it, ran her hand along the scarred fuselage, the patched bullet holes, the faded paint. It looked smaller than she remembered, more fragile, but she knew better, knew what it could survive, knew what it had survived. A historian documenting the boneyard asked if she wanted to say anything. She shook her head. No words, just silence, just respect. She took one last look, turned, walked away, left the ghost to rest, but the legacy didn't rest. A new generation of pilots flew A-10s, trained with her tactics, studied her missions, called themselves Revenants, adopted the call sign as a squadron tradition. Kira didn't know about it until a young captain showed up at her door, said she was deploying to the Middle East, said she wanted to meet the original Revenant. Wanted to know what it took. Kira invited her in, made tea, sat across from her, looked at the young woman's face, saw herself 30 years ago, hungry, determined, unaware of what was coming. She told her 3 things. First, trust the aircraft. The A-10 will take care of you if you take care of it. Second, trust yourself. When the radios are screaming and the world is chaos, your training will hold. Third, come home, not just your body, your mind, your soul. Don't leave pieces of yourself in the war. The captain listened, nodded, asked if Kira ever had doubts. Kira said every day. Said doubt kept you sharp, kept you human. Said the ones who never doubted were the ones who made mistakes. The captain thanked her, left, deployed, flew her missions, came home, Sent Kira a message, said she understood now, said thank you. Kira aged quietly, her daughter had children. Kira became a grandmother, taught her grandchildren to look up when planes flew over, taught them respect for those who served, didn't glorify war, didn't hide from it, just told the truth. That some people choose to stand in dangerous places, that their choice makes the world safer for others, that gratitude mattered. Years passed, Kira's health began to fail. Cancer, inoperable. The doctors gave her 6 months. She took the news calmly. Asked about pain management, about hospice. Made arrangements, told her daughter, her grandchildren, they cried, she didn't. She'd faced death before, this was just another mission, just slower. On her last day, surrounded by family, she drifted in and out, saw faces, heard voices. Her daughter held her hand, her grandchildren sat close. In the distance, she heard the sound of jet engines, looked toward the window, saw the sky, clear, blue, peaceful. For a moment, she was back in the cockpit, strapped in. Hands on the stick, the A-10 rumbling beneath her, the radio crackling, a voice calling for help. She smiled, whispered one word, Roger, then closed her eyes, let go, rose through the smoke, alive, forever.